Good afternoon, this is Angela with Hausfrau. I am filming today from a bit of an unusual location, so I hope you will bear with me despite the really loud air filter noise in the background. It's doing a good job of trying to clean the air in this building and keep everybody as safe as possible. So today I want to talk about why it is that I have decided to purchase my own birthday gift this year, and why it is that those of us that are homemakers need to and deserve to prioritize our own well-being and our own nurturing and caretaking, as well as caretaking for those around us. So I've said it before many times on this channel that homemaking and caregiving are inextricably linked. They're really interconnected. It's impossible to be a homemaker, part-time or full-time, without engaging in caregiving for folks in our household, for folks in our neighborhood, for folks in our greater community. But oftentimes, those of us who are really engaged in caregiving and caretaking can very, very easily neglect our own needs and neglect our own care in order to care for others. And our society does a fabulous job of exploiting our skill set and our energy and our drive to care for others, and will just sap us down to nothing if we don't take the time to care for ourselves. So first off here, let me say, obviously I love my family, my partner and my children are wonderful human beings, and I know and feel their love all the time. I don't want to in any way diminish that in the course of this video, talking about how I have decided to purchase gifts for myself in lieu of or in addition to whatever they may decide to do. I don't expect extravagant gifts. I don't expect expensive gifts. I expect not very much at all, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt on some level when a birthday or a holiday rolls around and there isn't really any show of appreciation. So I've decided that instead of experiencing that kind of like telling myself that I'm not expecting anything and not getting my hopes up, but then knowing that I'm kind of lying to myself on some level, and then knowing that I don't want to have negative feelings about those that I care about when that birthday rolls around and I'm kind of like, it's kind of nothing, like nothing happens. I've decided that with much encouragement from a couple of close friends to start buying my own gifts. I feel like I do a pretty darn good job of doing gifts for friends and family, anticipating what they may want or need or value. Gift giving is a skill set. Learning to know what kind of gifts to give, how to give within your budget in a way that makes somebody feel loved and cared for, that is a skill that hopefully a lot of us as homemakers have, and anybody can learn to cultivate over time. But for me, I've had a really hard time taking those skills and applying them to myself. And so if I don't want to feel disappointed when a special occasion rolls around and I don't feel special, I don't feel honored or acknowledged, why, instead of feeling resentment or frustration, why not take that opportunity and just care for myself, caretake for myself, make myself feel loved and cherished the way I would for somebody else? So I think it can be really easy for those of us that are homemakers and caregivers to just pour ourselves out for other people and find that really fulfilling, but that does not negate the need for us to also feel loved and cherished. And so while society tends to think that we are kind of a bottomless well that can just give and give and give and give, it's important that we take the time to take care of ourselves, knowing that society doesn't value the unpaid labor that we do, and that same society may think that perhaps we don't have the same kinds of needs. It's really easy to create this false dichotomy of like caregiver or care receiver. And those of us that are caregivers still have the need to receive care and to receive love and appreciation. So just because we are really good about caring for others doesn't mean that our needs suddenly dissolve and we no longer have those. So I do want to make sure here that we aren't buying into the false message that is so pervasive in our culture, our treat yourself culture, that tells us all of these ways that are self-care, that don't actually feed and nourish us, but really are just a marketing message to get us to buy things. I want to make sure that we are not buying into that false narrative. Yes, absolutely, there are times for birthdays and holidays and anniversaries that it feels really good to receive a gift, because that is a physical manifestation of the love and care that somebody has for us. Totally valid. That's not the same thing as if I'm feeling like my tank is on empty, the solution is to spend money and buy stuff. That's what consumer culture tells us, and that actually won't fulfill us in any way. So while I think it is well and good to treat yourself to a birthday present or a Christmas present or an anniversary present, if you know that those in your life love you and cherish you, but gift giving is not in their wheelhouse, and that you want to make sure that instead of building resentment or frustration or sadness, that you go ahead and meet your own needs and help yourself feel good. And in that way, know that you can caretake for others and for yourself at the same time. That's super different than just buying stuff to fill a void. Now, there are lots of small little ways that we can caretake for ourselves that are not really self-care in the way that we need it. True, real self-care means having rest, regeneration, feeling honored and loved, opportunities to work on our own emotional healing, to work on our physical health and well-being, to have the financial resources to not feel stressed and maxed out all the time. That's all what we really need for real, true self-care to make our lives sustainable. So I want to be careful here. As I'm getting ready to open this package, I want to talk about a few other little tidbits that we can add to our day that might help us feel special. But let's be really careful that that is not self-care. That is not self-care in a way that makes our lives less of a burden and more of a joy. It's not systemic change that we all truly need in order to slow down the hectic pace of life and afford to live a really peaceful and sustainable life. We live in a system that's super broken and super unsupportable, and lighting a candle at the dinner table is not going to change those systemic problems. They are a band-aid on the wound. So if we have energy, those of us that are homemakers should be pushing for policy change. We should be voting. We should be engaging in the electoral process. We should be engaging in our communities to create more sustainable ways of living, and therefore support us as homemakers and support those in our household. These little tiny gestures are not those things. They're nice, they're fun, but let's not try and substitute those small little things throughout our week with those big systemic changes that we all need and deserve if we're going to have a sustainable and functional society. So like I said, you could put a little candle out at the dinner table. I love putting out a whole bunch of candles. It's dark here in the winter at 4:30, and so it feels kind of special. My kids really enjoy it. Other small things you can do to take care of yourself on a regular basis. I have committed in 2022 to going on a walk every day. I am doing the 1,000-mile challenge. I like to run. I used to skate, and I don't skate anymore, and so running is kind of filling that void. But I've committed to walking every single day by myself, without my kids, without my spouse, without my loud, barky, energetic dogs, and just spend quiet time either listening to a podcast or being alone with my thoughts. That's one way that I prioritize time to take care of myself and give myself a breather. For you, that might look like just going and, like forest bathing, driving to a park and laying on a blanket under the shade of the trees. It doesn't have to be a physical activity. It might mean that you ask those in your household to give you 20 minutes and leave you the heck alone while you just lay on the sofa and do nothing. It might mean that you go sit out in your garden and you listen to a couple of chapters of your favorite audiobook. It might mean that you carve out time every week to engage in your favorite hobby. I made a video on my other channel about intuitive eating, but I think it's really good and valid to think about food as a pleasurable experience, and feeling like those of us who are homemakers can be really, really fixated or appropriately concerned about our budgets, especially our food budgets with the skyrocketing cost of food right now. But I think it's really important that we take the time and the money in our budget to treat ourselves to little decadent foods now and again, that we don't practice total deprivation. Food is meant to be a pleasurable experience. Life is meant to be pleasurable. And just because we are engaged in an unpaid vocation that is focused on frugality, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't make room in our budget for those kinds of really special foods now and again. For me, it's blue cheese. I really, really love expensive blue cheeses. So I'm willing to forego other things in my food budget in order to carve out a chunk so that I can go buy a little wedge of blue cheese now and again at the cheesemonger and be able to enjoy that. So I know you're being budget conscious. I know you're trying really hard to stick within the responsible boundaries of your family's budget. And an easy way to trim is in the grocery budget. But part of self-care is feeling like it's okay to allow yourself those special foods and special treats now and again. Besides taking a long walk every day, some folks might engage in being really careful about creating a good sleep environment for themselves. Some folks might need a certain level of exercise every day. Some homemakers might need a nap in the middle of the day. For me, I find the kind of sustainable self-care that we're talking about here, not like, oh, go ahead and like put your hair in hot rollers and put on a full face of makeup to go to the library. That's not really truly what we're talking about. Those might be nice little doodads here and there. And again, we're not talking systemic changes, but looking into yourself and taking the time to figure out what your needs are, touching base with your emotions, and thinking about what makes life more sustainable for you in the long run can be really important. And for me, one of those things is reducing conflict and reducing sad feelings, reducing the anxiety around certain holidays, and knowing how I have reacted in the past, knowing how my own needs are, and knowing when I'm likely to get those needs met by others and when I'm not, and crafting a plan to change the situation has made all of the difference for me. That for me is real self-care. It's not going and getting a mani-pedi. That's not self-care for me. That might be for you, but for me, while I can't make those big systemic changes in our society, I can just support those who are making those changes. I can still like hit this middle ground where I'm really thinking about my feelings, my reactions, my deep needs, and my interrelational needs with others, and realizing when I have set realistic expectations and when I've set unrealistic ones, and realizing that as a strong, empowered, capable woman, there are times when I can just meet my own daggone needs, right? Like self-care is realizing that we are capable of doing things for ourselves that feel good. We don't have to wait around for somebody else to notice our need or want and step in and do it for us. We are not passive in our lives. So speaking of not being a passive person in my life, knowing that I wanted to feel good about my birthday, I went and bought myself some more fabric on sale. So I want to show you what I got and then tell you what I'm going to make. I have a whole bunch of videos. I don't want to turn this into a sewing channel. So I have a number of clips I've done of the garments that I sewed from my last fabric haul video, but I ordered myself specifically a couple of things to make some summer garments for myself for this upcoming summer. And for me, that is choosing to take an active role in celebrating myself. That to me feels like being a good homemaker. I would take an active role in celebrating anybody else that I love and care for. Why not do it for myself? I am circumventing the inevitable hurt feelings when my birthday is probably not really acknowledged because life is really busy and not everybody is a gift giver. And I'm taking charge and I'm taking ownership. And for me, that's been so important in my homemaking. To make it more sustainable is to realize that when I take an active role in caring for myself and I take an active role in making sure my needs and wants are met, homemaking becomes more sustainable for me. Being a mother becomes more sustainable for me. So let me show you what I got. Let me tip the camera a little bit. So I've mentioned this before, trying to be really ecologically conscious in my sewing is really important to me. Notice I wear the same wool sweater every video and the same scarf. I don't actually wear a lot of clothes and I have a really small wardrobe. But for me, if I'm sewing, I try and use thrifted material, or sometimes I will buy material that is like an end lot from a fashion house that is just the leftovers from a large order. So it feels like buying the end of a bolt. It feels more sustainable because it's fabric somebody else produced and is now being sold closeout. So that's what I bought. About 100% linen. And this was like 86% off. So the first one here is I just bought enough linen to make a cute little skirt. This is a checked linen. It's like a blue and kind of a burgundy color. It's called Cobalt and Sugar Plum, excuse me. 100% linen from Europe. And I got 2 yards of it. And I'm gonna make myself a skirt for summer. A lot of my skirts are 15 or 20 years old, and a lot of them are getting pretty threadbare. So by a lot of them, I mean, I think I have like 3 summer skirts. So I'm gonna be sewing this. This linen was super cheap. And I'm going to be making a trapeze dress for myself. There's this company that has been posting online a lot, and they're always like in my social media feed, that has these beautiful trapeze dresses that are made by women in Africa, and I wish I could support them, but I can't afford a $160 dress. But on clearance, I was able for $20, $24, I'm able to make myself one, which is a lot for me. That's a lot, but I'll have leftover fabric, maybe enough left over to make a blouse for my daughter. So that's really pretty. So again, I'm just taking charge. I'm not expecting other people to buy me clothes or to even know what my style is. And I'm not gonna be disappointed when I don't get those things, because I'm gonna do it myself. And then I got this lovely mossy green, which is a little bit heavier linen, a little bit of a heavier weave, and I'm gonna make a skirt out of that. It's very pretty. So I feel pretty darn good about these birthday gifts that I got myself. Not only this beautiful fabric, but also facilitating my much beloved hobby of sewing. And then at the end, a garment. So I've kind of given myself 3 gifts in one, and or 3 garments, I should say. So I've given myself 9 gifts in one. But I hope that you know that you are definitely empowered to take time for those little self-care things that are little teeny tiny, like perhaps making sure that you put a bouquet of flowers by your bedside table that you pick out of your garden, or that you engage in something a little bit greater, like prioritizing moving your body or being outdoors if that's something that you need every day. I hope that you feel that you have a right to engage in the political and economic and systemic issues around you in your community to create a more sustainable society. All of those are great, great things, but also you have the right and the need as a homemaker to be loved and cherished and cared for. I am not in any way in this video saying that people in your household, folks in your life, shouldn't bother to love and acknowledge you just because you're really capable at your job, you're really capable at caring for others. That doesn't mean that you don't need to be cared for. What I am saying is learning to touch base with yourself, understand your needs, understand what might set you off, understand what might fulfill your needs, and then reading the room, knowing who's in your life and knowing what their skill set is. You absolutely have the right and the privilege and the opportunity to love yourself and care for yourself at your birthday, on anniversaries, on holidays, whenever. You have a right to love and cherish yourself and empower yourself to just take ownership of those things where other folks in your household may not have a strong skill set. It may not be their wheelhouse. You shouldn't feel any guilt whatsoever. I think it's a really good and healthy thing to decide to take care of yourself. It doesn't mean that there aren't times where you won't need to be the recipient of care from others. It doesn't mean that you don't have a right to be the recipient of care from others, but it also means that we have to function in the real world, and we have to function in real broken economic systems, real broken social structures, and we have to do the best that we can. And for me, it's working out pretty darn well to just decide to take ownership of my own birthday instead of setting myself up for perhaps hurt feelings. I'm now set up to have a really lovely day with my family and know that I've been gifted some wonderful things. So I hope that that is a positive message for you and that you get a good takeaway from this video today. As always, these videos are not yet monetized. Parker's Hausfrau needs 4,000 view hours. I very quickly met my subscriber minimum, but YouTube changed the way that they monetize videos since I made my original channel, Parker's Permaculture. So I need 4,000 view hours before any of these videos are monetized. And while I'm more than halfway there, it's slow going. So if you are interested in supporting the work of this channel, you can check out my Patreon. If you aren't able to become a patron, you can also throw a couple of bucks at my PayPal. All of that is down in the description. I really, really value everybody who donates to support the work that I do. So thank you very much. I will be back next Friday. I hope you all stay well and safe.